No one ever suggested that everybody is supporting Prince Reza Pahlavi. Not nobody ever suggested that. And also, we don't have any polls with regards to from the Islamic Republic forces how many people have defected to Prince Reza Pahlavi. There is no number regarding that. We know that the numbers are high, but we don't have exact numbers. I never made any claims like that. But what we do know is that Princess of Pahlavi's name is the only one's name that is being called in the streets of Iran when it comes to the leader of the revolution and the leader of the transition period. We know that the polls of Iranian people have been conducted so far. We have everything when it comes to the level of support that he has before this Lion and Sun revolution is anything, the polls that we had so far is anything between 49% to 80%. And even the 49% has been conducted by somebody who's anti-Pahlavi himself, the person who is conducting that poll. So even if we go with the minimum is 49 before the Lion and Sun revolution, which means that this revolution obviously has an impact. So even if we go with the most pessimistic one, which is 49, he's obviously now over 49% and above 50, which means that he has the majority of the support among the Iranian people. And with the next, with the anybody and with nobody else coming even close, it's not like he's the majority, and then there's other people who are at 30, 20, 40. He's above 50%, and there is no one else. So, and also when it comes to comparing his level of support to other countries where there's multiple parties and there are different politicians have different level of support, it's a false analogy because you're comparing one period to the post transition period to the revolution and transition period, right? When it comes to a level of support a politician has in a secular democracy and how many people would vote for him, that is for the post transition period. Okay, we're in the middle of a war, we're in the middle of a revolution. Okay, so there's three phases: the revolution phase, the transition phase, and the post transition phase, right? So the interesting thing is that during the revolution phase, if you look at it historically, the level of support that you need for a successful revolution as a revolutionary leader is like 10% or 20%. And even though but we have more than 50% for Princes of Pahlavi, right? We don't have 10 and 20%. We have way more than 50%. But uh, so, so the level of support that you're comparing the revolution phase to, you're comparing the revolution phase numbers that we have to other countries at the time that everything is settled and you have a functioning secular democracy. So you're comparing apples to oranges. If you want to see if the level of support Princess of Pahlavi has in the revolution phase, you have to compare it to other leaders during in history during the revolution phase, not the level of support a politician has after the country is already functioning as a secular democracy. But based on those standards, Princess of Pahlavi, I mean, even based on the standards that you're comparing it to, Princess of Pahlavi has amazingly high amount of support. But imagine if you actually compare apples to apples, which is comparing the support that he has in a revolution phase to other leaders during a revolution phase, then it actually looks even more impressive. But beyond that, it's not just the level of support somebody has, it's also the kind of support that he has, right? It's not that people just like, oh yeah, I like him, I would vote for him. That's not the kind of, so level of support, and let's look at the kind of support. It's not that I would vote for him, it's I would die for him. That's the type of support that he has. So don't just look at the quantity, also look at the quality of the support that he has. All right.
It would be interesting to actually have you go over what happened in the 79 revolution exactly. And that's, it's a whole other podcast. Don't do it now or anything, or maybe do it as a lesson in school, I would say, like, or do it at some
Yeah,
point. I wouldn't go into it right now,
we
but
will
it
we
would be
will
interesting to
we
hear
will
from your perspective.
Yeah, we will get to those. We have so much. We have decades for that. Okay, we'll get to those. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, next up we have Marcy.
Another thing you had in mind.
Marcy.
So he's really happy we've been talking a lot. so he's going to be screaming in the background. But I'm so sorry. My question was, I was seeing a lot about the defactors, like you were talking about, right? So I saw Trump mention that they're trying to get, but wouldn't it be more, I mean, like, more justice wise, wouldn't it be better if they were sent to the Iranian people, brought to justice in Iran, and then those people were the ones to decide whether or not they get immunity? So I'm really curious, like, how that's all going to play out, as well as like all these kids, like these kids that are in their 20s that have been brainwashed. Like, I feel bad for them because it's not their fault. It's like the parents and the way they were raised. And does that make sense?
With the first part, can you say the first part again? Like the Iranian people giving them justice instead of what? Like, what's the option that you're
Yeah,
trying
the
to avoid?
defactors, I heard Trump, yeah, I heard him mention, Trump mentioned that the defactors are the people like that are asking him for immunity are asking the US government. But wouldn't it be more advantageous and more fair as far as justice is concerned for the Iranian people to make that? Like, what's your perspective? Because
Okay.
for me, I think it's the Iranian people that need to make that, even if that means that those people die for their crimes. You know, justice needs to be served.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, with regards to what happens to the people who are with the Islamic Republic, and after the revolution is successful and the Islamic Republic is toppled, how do we deal with the people? Whether we're going to give them blanket immunity, or we are going to punish them for their crimes. So you're saying that instead of President Trump making that decision, it's the Iranian people that need to be making that decision. So what President Trump said regarding that immunity, that is also what Prince Reza Pahlavi has been saying, right? So it's just a reflection, a repetition of what Prince Reza Pahlavi has been saying for a while. And regarding justice, whether or not we're going to have justice, that's something that is not as high of a priority as making sure right now that the revolution is successful, right? So when it comes to the message that we put out there, we have to think about saving people's lives right now and thinking about justice later, right? So if the priority is saving people's lives, we need to put out the message out there that will get the highest number of defection. So we need to talk about justice because some Iranian people want justice so badly that if you suggest that there is not going to be justice, you're going to have less buy-in for this revolution. So talking about the fact that justice would be served is important. But right now, the highest priority is to get the people with their guns to put down their guns, right? So whatever you need to say right now to get them to put down their guns, we need to say that. Okay. So we don't have to worry about right now, oh, is this fair to the Iranian people or not? Well, it's not fair for the Iranian people if they like it. Fairness is less important than surviving. Like they're like, you can't be fair or unfair to an Iranian who's dead, right? So getting those armed forces to put down their gun with whatever messaging that we need to do right now is the highest priority. And honestly, once we have control, nobody's going to be able to stop the Iranian people to decide what their laws is going to be and what justice is going to be, right? So whatever President Trump is saying, I mean, and whatever anyone else is actually saying is not going to stop the Iranian people, because at the end of the day, we're going to have a secular democracy, right? We're going to have a referendum to decide whether or not we're going to be a constitutional monarchy or not. Then we're going to have a referendum for the people who are going to be writing the constitution. Then we're going to have a referendum to say yes or no to the new constitution. And then we're going to have a election where we choose the members of parliament. And the members of parliament, they're going to write laws, and the laws and what kind of justice that we're going to have is going to be dependent on our constitution and the laws that come out of our parliament, right? And also our court system. So obviously that's going to be the case, and by that point, honestly, the will of the people will be in effect. So given that we know that's what's about to come, we don't really have to worry about whether or not the Iranian people will make it, will basically be able to determine how things run in their country, because we know that's what's going to happen in a secular democracy. So right now, the focus should be on just putting the message out there to get the highest number of defection. and we don't have to worry about whether or not. I mean, as soon as you get rid of the Islamic Republic, and you don't have any entity, any body, any government shooting into masses of people, then the Iranian people are going to have their democracy, and they're going to have their say, and they're going to choose their own destinations. So we don't have to worry about that. Right now, we need to focus on winning this revolution. That's highest priority. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm half Iranian, so I've been trying to get the best information from somebody that's in there, has people in there, so that my arguments, because I'm getting called a bot, and like I get called a bot, Mossad, like all sorts of stuff, because I'm trying to show the truth, right? And so that was something that I was curious about. And I don't know. I'm hoping for dual citizenship at some point so I can like finally see where I come from and take my kids. So that was just one question that's really been weighing on my mind because like we're so messy and every side thinks that they're right and this is a fight against good against evil, and it's hard to change people's minds, but I think they're slowly changing. So I really appreciate and I appreciate you for providing a space for all of us because I'm by myself and I don't really have anybody else to talk to too, and nobody understands.
Just one quick addition before we move to the next person. The more sense you're gonna make them, like the more you learn and the more sense you make, the more you are going to be called a bot and Mossad. So I don't know if you're trying to learn more so you could avoid being called a bot or Mossad, you're doing it wrong, because the more you're going to be called, I mean, I mean, the the more effective you are, you see it as a badge of honor. So I mean, if you haven't been called a Mossad agent yet, like, what are you doing, right? Right.
Next, we have Amy.
All right, we get to go into religion now.
Oh, wow.
So, my question is okay, Khamenei is the supreme leader, right, of Islam? If you could explain this to me, Armin. So, because I'm thinking of it from like the Pope and Catholicism. Is it like that? Or like what are regular Muslims? How are they dealing with this? How do they see Khamenei in their regular lives, their normal lives that they live and they go to, you know, how do they do that? And then if I have time, I'd like to ask a question about Purim. So that's my question.
So how Muslims worldwide look at Khamenei, it really depends on the type of Muslim. So Khamenei, what he represents in Islam right now, as different groups of Islamic communities and schools of thoughts are out there, he is, objectively, he's okay. So it's objectively and emotionally, and then his own view. Okay, and these are, and also based on what he used to think before he was killed, right? So objectively, he represents, so Muslims are Shia and Sunni, and among Shias, what we have, the Islamic Republic version of Shia is called the Velayat Faqih version of Ethno Ashari Shia Islam, right? So Shia Islam historically believed that Muslims should not rule until the Mahdi comes back, right? M- m- The so so Shia Islam has different sects. One of the main sects is that Ethno Ashari, which means 12er Shia Islam. That's a version of Shia Islam that believes in 12 Imams. And the Islamic Republic Shia Islam is part of that. So, for example, the Houthis don't believe in 12 Imams, but they're Shia. The Ismailis don't believe in 12 Imams, but they're Shia ish, right? But the biggest sect of Shia Islam are the ones who believe in 12 Imams. So the Sunnis, they don't believe in Imams at all. They had four caliphs, right? So Sunnis are a completely different category, which is most Muslims, and they have four different schools of as thought, which we're not going to get into. We're going to focus on the Shias. The Shias, the main two, if we want to simplify it, There are Shias who believe in 12 Imams, and who believe in Imams as well, but a different number than 12. The biggest category of Shia Muslims are the Muslims who are the biggest category of Shia Muslims are the Shia Muslims who believe in 12 Imams, right? So among the Shias who believe in 12 Imams, there's two categories, right? The ones who believe in Vilayat Faqih, which is the guardianship of the jurist, and the ones who do not believe in the guardianship of the jurist. Okay, so the guardianship of the jurist or Vilayat Faqih is the Shia Islam that the Islamic Republic believes in, and this is an invention by Khomeini, the first supreme leader of the Islamic Republic. Before Khomeini, we didn't have this. Before Khomeini, we didn't. In 12 Shia Islam, you had to the 12th Imam, which is the Mahdi, you had to wait for that guy to come out of his hiding place. When he returns, then you Muslims get to rule, right? So that's the original 12 Shia Islam. But Khomeini, because his revolution was successful, he created this version of Shia Islam that Shias get to rule, and it's called Velayat Faqih, or guardianship of the jurist, which is the idea that Shia mullahs can rule on behalf of the Mahdi or the 12th Imam while he's gone and manage things for him until he's back. So they could rule on his behalf. So they call them Na'ib Imam Mahdi. So Khomeini and then Khamenei after him were basically the people who were ruling for Mahdi while he's absent. Okay? So when Khamenei was alive, I can't believe I'm saying that, when he was like, this is, oh my God, this is so good to say that. When Khamenei was alive, he was the leader of this section of Islam, right? So he's not the leader of all Muslims. Okay, he's not even the leader of all Shia Muslims. He's not even the leader of all 12 Shia Muslims. He was the leader of the segment of 12 Shia Muslims who believe in the guardianship of the jurist, right? And his main competitor when it comes to leaders in Shia Islam was Ayatollah Sistani in Iraq, who is a 12 Shia Muslim, but is against the concept of Velayat Faqih, right? Which is like, he's a big deal. So Khamenei also saw him as his main competitor when it comes to religious authority, right? So that's the official objective part. So now I'll go to the second category, emotionally. So among Muslims who don't really follow Islam very carefully and they're not into the scholarship, and most Muslims have no idea about anything I just told you. Okay, even most Shia Muslims who believe in Vilayat Faqih could not explain any of these things that I just told you in this level of detail. Okay, it's all based on fifis. Okay, you see, it just things resonate, you like, you support. Okay, and you just remember certain things that are good. These are the good things, these are the bad things, and you hear it on the news or in your mosque. Okay, Muslims who are not part of the Vilayat Faqih Shia, Ethna Shia Islam around the world, they're like, they go based on fifis as well. Like, this guy's a Muslim, the Jews killed him, so the Jews are bad. This guy was a Muslim like us. I mean, he doesn't dress up like us, but he sounds like us. He says that kind of like the Allah and Muhammad stuff. They keep saying Ali, Ali, and Fatima and Hassan Hussein. That doesn't sound like us, but there's enough stuff that sounds like us for us to be considered, like, between them and the Jews. He's like more the good guy, and the Jews are the bad guy. So he's our guy. So we love him. So I don't know, curse the Jews, and we support Khamenei. So a lot of Muslims are just going and supporting Khamenei because it just seems like the right thing to do because he was killed by the Jews, right? But obviously there are many Muslims who take these divisions a lot more seriously, and they're like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, there are many Muslims who hate Shias more than they hate the Jews, more than they hate the atheists, more than they hate anybody, right? Because the Shias represent the greatest sin in Islam, which is associating partners with Allah. So for many Sunnis who take their Sunnism very seriously, there's no worse thing to be other than a Shia, because in the name of Islam, they associate partners with Allah, which is the most unforgivable sin in Islam, because they pray to Ali, they pray to Hussein, they pray to Fatima, they worship at the shrines of these people. They're not supposed to do that. They're only supposed to worship and pray to Allah. So not only this is the greatest sin in Islam, they're doing that while acting like they're Muslim. So this is why, for example, ISIS kills more Shias than they kill anyone else. Like the ISIS for Al Qaeda, they spend more their time killing Shias more than they kill any other group of people. So those people, like, they cannot stand Sunnis like uniting with Shias because they shouldn't, right? So that's that. And then from Khamenei's perspective, while he was still alive, he obviously considered his version of Islam to be the only Islam, and he considered himself in his delusion to be the leader of the Islamic world, and wanted to eventually, his goal was to be the leader of the Islamic world. But quite recently, he became a heretic, even based on the guardianship of the Judas 12-verse Shia Islam. Even in that category, he became a heretic to that as well. So in the past few years, he became something completely else, like, which is, I don't even consider to be Islam at all. Like, because he came out and said recently before he died that he mentioned a memory that he had where he was speaking, but the words that were coming out of his mouth was not his words. And then he said that my tongue and my mouth was moving, but God was the one who's doing the speaking. He said that. And that means that, based on how I see Islam, he became a non-Muslim. Like, he's a murtad. Like, based on when he said that, based on Islamic Republic's own rules, he should have been executed for just saying that. Because he just gave himself a level that is above even Prophet Muhammad. Like, Prophet Muhammad, when he was speaking, he wouldn't meet Allah. He had the angel Gabriel was in between him and Allah, and God never actually spoke through Muhammad's mouth. And he couldn't even meet, he only met Allah once through the Miraj. But every time else, he had an in between and he wouldn't get to meet Allah. But Khamenei just skipped all of that, and he gave himself, he basically made himself God himself, which is, he kind of saw himself as something basically adjacent to God, which is basically non un-Islamic and the most heretical thing you could say. So I don't know what you call that anymore, but he's basically his own category now. I mean, before he died. So I don't know, Amy, did you understand all of that, or was that too complicated?
I understood some of it. I want you to do in the future down the road. Like, I want to do like Bible study, but Quran study, so that I can learn all of this stuff. But there's just too much there's too much. It's like a 5,000 piece puzzle, so
Right.
it's going to be a
But
lot.
by the way, none of this is in the Quran or the Hadith. This is just make it up as you go kind of strategy, right? Okay.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
Can I ask my question
Choose
about
your
the Jewish thing?
Okay, but I don't. Can you ask that later because I don't have the answer to that
Yes.
question, and there's a lot of Jews
Yes.
here. So when I leave, maybe you could talk to the
Okay.
Jews here.
Also, Amy, depending who you ask, some people only believe half, they don't believe the other half. Wherever you get the source from that you want to bring up, they'll say they don't follow that one. So no matter what you learn, like, you're not going to pin somebody who doesn't want to be pinned anyway. They'll just say they only follow Hadith, they only follow this. They will mess around. Shy, I see you. I'm going to put you on the list. And next we have Richard.
Just want to make a
Commentary in
very quick
between by
comment,
BT.
may I?
No. Let's go. Let's go through the list.
Two-part question for Jeffrey, if he's available. So I wanted to get your estimate on, basically, given Trump's estimate of a 4-week war term for, I would assume, the neutralization of the Islamic Republic as both an internal and an external threat, if that is still realistic given the progress that you've seen since he's made that statement, if you think it might be sooner, and also if realistically you think we can meet that metric without substantial American boots on the ground.
So again, using competitive open source intelligence assessments, that's like longhand for listening to interviews on the media. President Trump has made it very clear that we're ahead of schedule because of just how many targets got serviced. The House of Saud can put up between 3 and about 500 sortie, like aircraft, if they want to do mass by themselves, which is one of the reasons why we were looking at hitting the Mullah regime before all of this. It was actually a combination. That's why the Abraham Accords was so important, because you'd have a alliance between the House of Saud and Israel in the open, with the subtext goal of guarding against the threat posed by the Mullah regime. Add to that, like Jordan and all the rest of them. I mean, like, the Mullah regime's going to have a real bad day, like whatever's left. So that being said, can I give you? It's going to be between 2 and 4 weeks, right? So like we hit. This is again open source intelligence assessments. 55 to 60% of all the Mullah regime's ballistic missile, tells, and or long range drone munitions, strike capability in the first like hour. Like they we obliterated all their air defense, all of their strategic radar. We've sunk, about, well, last assessment, like just with 11 ships, you're talking about 40% of their overall navy has been sunk. We're well beyond that now. Israel is putting the sting to whatever's there. We've obliterated like IRGC and besieged headquarters. That was definitely high up on the list. Albeit, so the enemy also learns, Richard, remember competitive adaptation? So like the bad guys, like the
Yeah.
IRGC and their besieged scumbag buddies, were doing things like taking prisoners out of the kids that they had kidnapped and imprisoned from the protest, and trying to use them as human shields in alternative sites that they have created as alternative headquarters. So of course we're countering that by coming up with ways to counter their counter. It's a constant, like, that's what it means, competitive adaptation. Who can evolve, analyze the other guy quicker and evolve quicker. So all that to say, he said that it's like 4 weeks ish at the outset. That said, we're ahead of schedule. So 2 to 4 weeks, where it is now. I mean, I couldn't like, I can't say it's going to end in, this Friday at like 12:37. I mean, there's no way I could do that.
Now, do you think a large contingent of ground troops will be necessary, not accounting for special forces contingent? I mean, like a main deployment contingent.
So when this administration has been asked consistently, there is no ground force, operations envisioned, although they don't leave it out. And even then, if it was there, it would be probably like to do a quick cleanup of like, okay, these are the guys we killed. This is the intel we're getting. This is, I mean, it's not going to be like Iraq. Nobody wants to do that. And we don't need that. We already have boots on the ground. We have brave Iranian civilians, right? So it's not ruled out. I know that Israel is getting ready to put ground troops in to help Iranian protesters. That's in the open. That's in open intelligence. Like they're getting ready to put those guys in. And if you really want, I mean, I don't know, maybe even the House of Saud might put people in there. Like they really, like the mullahs really pissed off the House of Saud. They're like chomping at the bit to get a piece of mullah, whatever mullah butt is left. Like they're not happy. So as far as us putting boots in the ground, probability is pretty low. Not the least of which is it's kind of like we don't need it. I mean, like we've knocked the living. Think of what Armin said today, right? He's like, look, we killed the first group, and then we had the second group, and then they got obliterated. We're running out of people to even know. Right? So I don't see a large a U.S. ground force footprint in the region. I don't think it's operationally required, at least from what I can see at this point right now.
All right, guys, remember that when I'm gone, the conversations that you don't want to have with me, you could, like, there's endless amount of time for that as soon as I'm gone. So let's try to
Everybody
go
wants
through
to
the
have
list as fast
conversation
as
with you.
possible.
Everybody loves you.
No, I know, but like we could, like, I just want to make sure that I get through the list before I have to go back to the stream. All right, so who's on the list?
Okay, to clarify, Sapir still gone? Okay, next I had Nima, but I'm gonna add that to the bottom because we have other people who haven't asked yet. Hila, I assume still gone?
Hila.
Okay, I will be asking the question for Shauna. She has laryngitis. What has been the most surprising thing about this so far? And are you worried about the MEK at all?
Oh, okay. So there, I don't know. Okay, so when it comes to the Lion and Sun revolution that is happening right now, I actually I'm making a list of the things that I have a list of things that I predicted correctly and the things that surprised me and I got wrong. First of all, I was very optimistic about how much support Prince Reza Pahlavi has in Iran, and sometimes I wondered that maybe if I'm being too optimistic. But then after the early January protests and what happened after that, I realized that I was not optimistic enough. It was much bigger than I thought. One thing that I it's hard for me to talk about is that I underestimated the Islamic Republic's ability to massacre. To There was this assumption that when Iranian people come out into the millions would come into the streets, then they would not be able to shoot that many people, and that would be mean that it's game over. And the Islamic Republic proved that it has a level of ability for cruelty that even so many of us that knew that they're monstrous did not see coming. And that one really pains me because on my Persian channel, I told my audience that if they go out in big numbers, they will be safe. And I don't know if I'm responsible for anyone dying for saying that. Because as there were some people who were scared, and I know some people who became confident because of what I said. And then what the Islamic Republic did was something beyond anything we could imagine. And I wonder if somebody's dead right now because they would have stayed home if it wasn't for me. So that's something that keeps me up at night sometimes because of that wrong assessment that we had. So that surprised me and many other people. What else surprised us? What also surprised me was how fast Khamenei died. We knew he would be a target. We knew that this. I mean, you guys heard me here many times telling you that when the United States and Israel, that first of all we told you that we said here United States and Israel attacks are coming, and the chances of that not happening was very low, and it did happen. We don't also say that it's going to be unlike any war you have ever seen. The effectiveness of it is going to be unlike any war that you've ever seen. It's going to break all kinds of records, and you saw that it did. But even I didn't expect for Khamenei to die within the first 2 hours of the military operations. So that was pretty impressive and unexpected. We thought it's going to be a challenge, at least a little bit of a challenge, but apparently not. Apparently, every single breath that Khamenei was taking was because the Israelis were showing him mercy, and they could have taken him out anytime they wanted, and they just needed the green light. One thing that really surprised me is how soon the Iranian people went back into the streets and shouted that Pahlavi will return. So after the scale of the massacre in early January, I kept on saying that the Iranian people have proven that they will always be back. And many people thought that that scale of massacre means that it's over and the Iranian people will never dare come back into the streets and do the same thing again. And I said that if you bet against the Iranian people, you will be wrong. And obviously, they will come back into the streets and they will do the same thing. But even though I was very optimistic about that, it seemed like I wasn't optimistic enough because it took only 40 days for Iranian people to come back and then do the same chance and cross the exact same red lines that they just saw 40 days before the Islamic Republic killing people in such high numbers. And they saw what the consequences of that is, and they still did it. And it's not only they did it in daylight. What they did it early January was under the cover of the night, but 40 days after they came out in daylight and did the same thing, which was unbelievably brave and surprising in a nice way. Yeah.
Armin, their king told them to come out, and they did. And they
Yeah.
had to come out for this to move forward. I would never try and take away what you're feeling right now, because I hear you big time, and I would feel the same way. But their king told them to come out.
Yeah, but I added something that I shouldn't have. I said that there's probably nothing will happen to them if the numbers are very high. That's what I added, and I shouldn't have added that. I was wrong about that.
We'll argue with you about it another time. We have a second question in the chat. Who taught Islamists to go individually killing people / kafirs without a proper group jihad? Because I can't think of it as justification, even in Islamic texts.
Wait, who told Muslims to go kill the kafirun?
Who taught Islamists to go individually killing people
Oh,
or to go killing kafirs without a proper group jihad?
oh, without a proper group jihad. I mean, what is a proper group jihad?
Something like suicide bombers, they're asking. Like, where is the
Oh,
justification for the text that they can go out on their own and just do these things without being,
right.
directly? They're saying you cannot jihad without khalifa.
I mean, there's nothing in the Quran regarding a caliph. So so here's the thing: the Quran is specific enough in the worst places and vague enough in the worst places as well, right? So there are certain things that are the core of Islam because the Quran is very, very, very clear about it, and there are areas that you have flexibility because the Quran is very vague about it. So obviously, like for example, that kafirun, they need to, you need to fight them. You need to fight the kafirun. That is a very clear part of the Quran. And also, it's not just the Quran, it's also the hadith, right? So like killing murtads, killing the people who leave Islam, is a very clear part of Islamic teachings, right? When it comes to specifics on how you get to do that and what is okay and what is not, then we have, I mean, within Sunni Islam, you have four different Islamic school of thought, and even within those Islamic school of thoughts, no two scholars get to agree with each other. This is the problem with a scripture, in my opinion, as a whole, because is you could make, I mean, the core is rotten, so you can tell that whatever grows out of it is going to be bad on average, but it's also, it has enough vagueness and flexibility to be able to interpret it in different ways. And sometimes you can actually interpret it in good ways as well, that makes it less harmful in the short term, but also makes it more harmful in the long term. Like, if you give me the Quran and Hadith, I am I have enough creativity to come up with interpretation that makes Islam a really decent and good religion, right? The problem with that is that makes it more dangerous, right? Because if it was so obviously vile, disgusting, and inhuman, it wouldn't last long. This flexibility of being good and being bad at different times means that the evil that is Islam would be longer lasting, because whenever it's on defensive mode, it has the flexibility to be interpreted in a way that is less harmful, and it will live to harm another day. So if you're looking for specifics when it comes to the Quran and Hadith, look, when it comes to the Hadith is very specific in many areas, but when it comes to the Quran itself, there are parts that are very clear and not room for interpretation. But there are many, many, many places that it really depends on how you want to look at it. And even the parts that are clear, Muslims don't agree on even those. So let alone the parts that are vague.
Okay, next is Sapir.
Okay. So I'm just like here with like two updates. Syria has started to move forces to the border with Lebanon, probably because Hezbollah is active. And Erdogan forces from Turkey started to attack Lebanon as well. we have been clashing in the past 4 hours, specifically with Turkey military. So we'll see where that develops. We also got the data from the past few days about how many launches there have been to Israel specifically. So on Saturday there were 90 missiles coming to Israel from Iran. Sunday 70. Yesterday 25, and today 20. Well, now it's 26. The question that I do have, I don't know if you want to answer it here or you want to talk to me in private. It's about the whole situation with Goldie and the email that she received. Like if we need to be worried about that. If like there are a couple of people that asked me, and I'm like not sure
We're
what to
not
tell
gonna.
him.
It's better not to talk about it. It's better
Okay.
not to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But thank you for your concern.
Armin, I saw that hand. Are you looking for a spot on the list, or you had something for here?
No, I want to be added to the list. Thank you.
Beautiful.
And BT,
Okay.
I'm so happy you're on the list. I can't wait to see what you have to say.
Is Hila back with us?
Hila.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi. I just wanted to say to Ali, he asked what we think gonna be a problem. And I don't think any of the reason you said is gonna be a problem. But from what I'm hearing between the lines of many people in Israel, like Mossad expert and so forth, they are saying that they are afraid that don't take it like in a bad way, but they are afraid that the Iranian people don't have enough discipline, and that they're going out to the streets when they are told not to go, and that maybe they are not in tune and they will not be successful in doing the maneuver. So there is a lot of fear here about that. And also I noticed that the IDF in Farsi doesn't gain more followers. It's only 1.2 million for like a few weeks now. So I think that's what people here are afraid of. It's going to be a problem. So I'm happy to hear what Armin have to say. Maybe he can help in this situation, because I hear you say a lot in your lives about the idea of Farsi, but I don't know if the Iranian people can connect to that. Maybe the Iranian from outside can connect to that and just.
So the Iranian people need to be connected to Prince Reza Pahlavi for when the order comes, when for them to go into the streets. The main person they trust and believe in and will follow orders from is Prince Reza Pahlavi. So when the Israelis and Americans have eliminated enough forces of the Islamic Republic for the suppressing power of the Islamic Republic to be reduced enough for it to be time for the Iranian people to come into the streets and take back their country, I'm pretty sure the Americans will call to the Iranian people, and Israelis will also call to the Iranian people to come out. But it's the main person that will have the most effect is Prince Reza Pahlavi's call to action. So you don't need to worry about how much they're following the IDF or Mossad, because they're following Prince Reza Pahlavi, and Prince Reza Pahlavi is obviously in touch with people from Israel and United States, and he's going to get the signal for them for when is the time to give out the command. When it comes to the level of organization that they have, it's really difficult to come up with it, because if you want to be manage mobilization of the Iranian people, you don't have what the IRGC have. You don't have a central command and the network of communication and all of the things that the IRGC has access to. So they cut the internet and the line. So you're just going based on an order, and then after that, everybody has to figure out what to do based on the area that they're in. So it's a little bit difficult. It's not their fault. It's basically difficult because different parts of people in the city or in the town, they cannot communicate with each other. Every decision that they're making is based on what they could see in front of them rather than the communication that they're having with each other. So if there's a bit messy, it's because of that. It's because of that lack of ability for people. And even if you had that, you can't like tell people to go here at this time and attack that place at that time, because if you make that information public, then the Islamic Republic, the regime forces would know where to go and where to kill the Iranian people. So it needs to be based on, it's going to be a bit messy, very messy, because it's going to be based on the wisdom of the crowd, based on what you're observing on the ground as it's happening. There's no way to tell people to go at this point, at this time, go over there, because then the Islamic Republic knows exactly how to suppress them. And so this is what makes everything very difficult. But the thing is that the only thing we could count on is the high number of Iranian people who will show up, right? So given that the Iranian people showed up in the millions when the Islamic Republic was still in power, some people are confident that they will show up in the millions again once the suppressing forces of the Islamic Republic is not there, right? That is a concern, but it shows that once they're given the order, then they're going to come out in much higher numbers, given that they can't. I mean, if you're having a hard time telling them to stay in, then imagine what happens when you tell them to come out, right? So I understand your concern, and I'm concerned as well. But the silver lining is that they can't wait to get out. And honestly, even if it's unorganized, if their suppressing forces have been weakened enough, and if the Iranian people come back into the streets in the millions again, this might be what we exactly need. And remember, many Iranian people are coming out this time to kill, based on the level of massacre that they had to experience by the hands of the Islamic Republic. So in the past 40, 50 days or so, many Iranian people have been strategizing regarding exactly who they're going to go after and how they're going to take out their enemies, because they want revenge. So this might get really, we'll see, we'll see. It might get chaotic, but we'll see what happens.
I heard that Trump is the one that wants to give people weapons, so he's counting on these groups, but I feel like it's a scary move. But yeah.
I think what they're talking about is people within the regime who have weapons joining the people rather than just handing weapons to the Iranian people.
As a reminder, we have about 18 minutes left. So next, very briefly, you can give like a very brief. I'm not sure if I asked this question previously, but it was still in my notes, so I want to make sure we cover it for that person. Did the Savak work directly under the Shah or as an independent organization?
Okay, so I know they worked under the Shah, but I also know, because the Shah was the person that managed to also close them down when he wanted to, when under international pressure. So my understanding is that they work under the Shah, but I also know that they I specifically remember a phone call between the Shah and the Savak, where the Shah was arguing against the Savak, asking for certain political prisoners to be released, and the Savak leader on the other side telling the Shah that the Shah is saying, "Your Highness, you don't have the authority to free these people." So I don't exactly know how that works, and why would the Savak person say that to the Shah. So that suggests to me that there must have been some level of autonomy if he dared tell the king such a thing.